Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially healthcare. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers. Taxi!
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Welcome back to Let the Record Show with Chairman Jesse Garcia of the Republican Party. Jesse is the Vice Chair of the New York State Republican Party and the County Chair of the Suffolk County Party. With us is our co-host, noted attorney, commentator, essayist, Eric Levine. I'm Judge Richard Weinberg, and we're absolutely delighted to have with us the chairwoman of the United States House of Representatives Rules Committee, one of the most powerful committees, important committees in the Congress. Congresswoman Foxx is a doctorate in education. She was president of a college. She was chair of the Education Committee in the House. She's one of the leaders of the Republican conference. And we're absolutely delighted. I have on very good authority that Congresswoman Foxx was born and bred in New York, and you'll hear, as soon as you hear her, you'll know that she still has her New York accent. Congresswoman Foxx, you want to make an introductory statement before I turn you over that searing cross-examination of Eric and Jesse?
That would be great. I do, in my first campaign for Congress, one of my opponents was pointing out that I was born in New York to try to undermine me. And then I found out later he was born in New York, That's how it works in politics. I tell everybody I was born in New York because you have to be where your mother is when you're born, right?
Generally, it works as a general matter. I'll take judicial notice of that, yes.
Right. My mother grew up as an extremely poor person in the mountains of North Carolina, in the Appalachian Mountains. Her father was a coal miner in Grundy, West Virginia. She was born there, but when she was 8 years old, he died. And her mother and her sisters were destitute, so they moved to the mountains in North Carolina where my mother had an aunt living. I mean, it was 1930 in the depths of the Depression, and honestly, they would have starved to death if they hadn't had a family to come to. But she had no skills, although she was a very bright woman. I shouldn't say she had no skills. She had lots of skills. They just weren't very marketable skills. So when she was like 18, her sister and brother-in-law, who had gone to New York from the mountains of North Carolina and were running a restaurant in Brooklyn, by the way, Eric, brought my mother there to babysit with their 1, 2, and 3-year-olds while they worked restaurants long hours during World War II. And she met my dad there. His parents were Italian immigrants, came to the United States and settled in New York in 1906, 1907. Did not know each other, but met each other there. My grandmother's name was Conchetta Ashoni. My grandfather just had a simple Italian name, Frank Palmieri. And then my father, who was the eldest in the family, he was named Nunzio. He had a brother named Pasquale, and there was Raimondo. Just typical Italian names: Tilly, Josephine, Mary. All the Italian names. So I was born in New York, and then when I was 6.5 years old, my parents moved to North Carolina. Now, their reason for moving is a little questionable, but we lived in the backwoods of North Carolina, again, extremely poor down here, very, very poor. My father had to work away from home and because there were no jobs in the area, but they were near my mother's family, again, because I had an aunt who lived in the area. So it's kind of the way poor Appalachian people have always worked. But I grew up here, then graduated from high school and went to college as a day student one semester, didn't have any money. My parents still had not much money, and they had moved away when I graduated from high school. And so my grandparents were still living in the Bronx, on Middletown Road near across from Pelham Bay Park.
Well, if anybody were to ask me, listening to you, I would have said, clearly this woman is from the South Bronx.
That's what I had started.
Exactly.
All right, Eric, time for your searing cross-examination.
So I want to remind people, this is a wonderful biography, but this is a wonderful biography of a wonderful woman. Just to remind people who Virginia Foxx really is in her core. We all remember the Kafir Nazis at Columbia University, as they were protesting Israel's right to exist and Jewish students' right to exist at Columbia. While Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries were in the Witness Protection Program hiding, and Zohar Mamdani was cheering them on, Speaker Mike Johnson, Congressman Mike Lawler, and Congresswoman Virginia Foxx had the courage of their convictions and went to Columbia and told these students and told Columbia University that the anti-Semitism had to stop. So while people listen to Virginia Foxx and they say, wow, what a wonderful, nice woman, this woman has character and is tough as nails. And as an American Jew and as a New Yorker, Virginia, I want to thank you for that effort. It was very important.
Well, having grown up poor in the mountains of North Carolina made me tough.
There you go.
And I believe in doing the right things for the right reasons. And I will tell you, many years ago, I was working for Governor Jim Martin in Raleigh, and I had a man working for me who was an organizational specialist. And I'd been there about 2 months, and I said to him, what do people say about me behind my back? He said, they say you have a heightened sense of justice.
And that sounds like you're from the South Bronx.
That's right. And I think that is one of the nicest things anybody could say about a person in elected office. Now, because I grew up poor, I've always believed in the power of education and hard work. And so my goal has always been to help as many people as I can who are willing to work hard to get a great education and be able to succeed in this country. If a person like I and my husband, whose traces his heritage back many generations in the mountains of North Carolina, if the two of us could succeed, my belief is anybody in this country can succeed with hard work and a good education.
Well,
but you have to be treated fairly.
But to talk about people who don't not necessarily believe that people should work real hard, let's talk about the partial government shutdown, which makes absolutely no sense to me. So it's been forced upon us by the Democrats, it appears, that there'll be a shutdown of the DHS, Department of Homeland Security, because the Democrats believe that ICE is out of control. But the problem is, as I understand it, that ICE is already fully funded through 2029 or 2030, and that the shutdown, the closing of DHS, the non-funding of DHS, really impacts principally FEMA and the
Correct.
TSA.
And the Coast Guard.
Correct.
And the Coast Guard. So
Correct.
as someone from North Carolina who is still reeling from those storms, I mean, I understand Asheville still has never been the same. Can you explain to me what the rationale is behind this government shutdown, or what Democrats are, privately are telling you as to why they're doing this?
They can't really delineate it except to say that they're unhappy about what happened in Minneapolis, and this is the only tool available. to express their unhappiness. But obviously, it is affecting these other agencies. You know, a lot of people thought it was crazy when, under President Bush, they put all these disparate agencies under the Department of Homeland Security, and I feel the same way. But it is incomprehensible. Now, I saw something today in the news that said Hakeem Jeffries wants to talk next week when we're back in town about what might be able to be done to open the government again. They took a real beating over the closing down of the government last year for 43 days or something, longest government shutdown ever. And I think they're probably beginning to feel it again. Most Americans aren't being touched by this because they're not flying or they're not in the Coast Guard. But FEMA is still operating, and we need the help of FEMA. I mean, they're still there, and they're need to be helping people. I checked with my office this morning. We still have open cases from what happened a year and a half ago with Hurricane Helene. And, of course, there are problems all over the country where we need FEMA's help.
Yeah, so I mean, how far along is the recovery in North Carolina from the hurricane?
Well, when it happened, we estimated it would take 10 years. And you can drive around and see many, many, many trees down all around. As I said, we still have cases open from a year and a half ago. Mostly roads are going to need to continue to be rebuilt, water systems that were washed out, rivers that got over their banks, and we need stream restoration. They're just things that are going to go on forever. And this is not something that is going to be taken care of. We had people who lived in their homes for 50, 60 years. My husband and I had classmates from high school who had, built their own homes, lived in them, paid for them a long time ago, wiped out, and maybe the house was worth $400,000. They got $43,000.
Tragic.
From FEMA. That's all. You can't be 75, 80 years old and start all over again like that.
Yeah, so in the Democrats' infinite wisdom, let's shut it down so these people can continue to suffer. It's crazy.
Right.
So
exactly.
So I'd like to just shift gears for a second. So this past week, Secretary of State Marco Rubio gave what I would describe as a tour de force in addressing some of our European allies, in particular his emphasis on our shared past and future in Western civilization. And one of your colleagues, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, in response to his speech, which got a standing ovation from our allies, by the way.
Rubio's speech,
made the following comment, that Rubio's speech was, quote, a pure appeal to Western culture, close quote. Am I missing something? Don't we live in Western civilization?
Yes, of course. And we are the greatest country in the history of the world. We have done more good for the rest of the world, but Western civilization has done more good next to us, and obviously we come out of Western civilization. Our earliest immigrants here were from Europe, mostly from England, Scotland, those countries, Ireland, and they brought with them culture, Western culture. They brought freedom of religion. They brought capitalism. They brought many things with them that have spread now all across the world and have made the world a better place. what has brought the most people out of abject poverty has been capitalism. What has brought people out of disease-ridden places has been what we have done, scientific exploration, scientific achievements coming out of Western civilization. She's not very, very bright. Senator Kennedy has the best comments about her. I'm not as smart and as witty as he is, but he has some great things that he says about her. But I'll leave it to her herself to condemn herself with her comments.
Well, I mean, when she was asked about American policy vis-a-vis Taiwan, she responded, now try and follow me here, folks, quote, I think that this is such a, I think that this is this is, of course, a very long-standing policy of the United States. And I think what we are hoping for is that we want to make sure that we never get to that point, and we want to make sure that we are moving in all of our economic research and all our global positions to avoid any such confrontation, and for that question to even arise, close quote. So I guess my question would be...
What does that mean?
And you partially answered it, is she as big an idiot in private as she is publicly?
Well, I have to say, I don't have any conversations with her.
Well, what can you say to something like this?
You'd like... All right. Congresswoman, I'm turning over to Jesse Garcia, who definitely does ums and ahs and whatevers. Jesse.
Madam Chairwoman, thank you so much for joining us. And of course, and having your heart belong to New York, as you said when you did your introduction there. First and foremost, I am, as the chair of the Rules Committee, do you think that you can play AOC's comments in Munich every time a Democrat speaks about some of their socialistic policies, just to demonstrate how dumb they are, and maybe shut them down a little bit easier? But what I want to speak to you is about actually two things. One more about first, maybe in the realm of your former chair that you had under education, and then the other one about the Epstein files. First, in your former role, when you served as the chair of the Education Committee, the Republicans seem to always have been innovators and have always moved forward in trying to increase more of resources into the classroom, place an emphasis more on education, it seems. And the Democrats, which is their response to everything, is simply just feeding the union beast. Yet we get a bad tag about it. Can you speak of how maybe we're missing the boat there, or how the American people, New Yorkers specifically, are missing the boat there, that Republicans truly are trying to move forward, advancing the ball on education for our younger folks?
Well, I always make sure that I explain to people that I'm a constitutional conservative. And I always, when I'm speaking to a group in person, I will hold up my pocket copy of the Constitution, and I will say, if you can find the word education in here as a responsibility of the federal government, I'll chew it up and, I'll eat it. The role of the education is not a responsibility of the federal government. And so what Republicans are always trying to do is push down decision-making to the local and state level. I knew when I became chair of the committee that I did not have the power to get the federal government out of education. I would have loved to have done that, but I couldn't. And what Secretary McMahon is doing now is looking for every way that she possibly can to reduce the role of the federal government. And so is the chair of the Education Committee. We will always do that as Republicans, unless we have rhinos, of course, who don't understand that. But that's what we're trying to do. And so many things have been pushed out to other departments. The real key will be when we eliminate any kind of responsibility to the federal government from the states and localities, because they have no responsibility unless it is always tied to money. That's how the Democrats over the years have forced the localities and states to be involved. I was on the committee, not chair of the committee, when President Obama got Obamacare passed. And what Obamacare did was it was funded by the federal government picking up 100% of the student loan programs. Now, you want to talk about a debacle. That is a number one debacle, and that got the federal government more involved in education than anything else that has ever happened in education.
Well,
Thank you for that. I want to just turn
Go ahead,
to
Jesse.
possibly the Epstein file. Oh, I'm sorry, Judge. Would you like to?
I think you're doing a great job, Jesse. I yield my, as we say in Congress, I yield my time to you and the Congresswoman.
I just want to turn my your attention a little bit to the Epstein files, and there's been a lot of hoopla going on and whatnot. And finally, the legislation has been passed, and evidently all the documents have been released from the Department of Justice. Just one observation, and to get your comments on, and maybe then a question. Number one, my first observation is that the Democrats are pushing this because they thought it was going to spill back on the President Trump. Obviously, it's done nothing of that. In fact, even Democrat consultants have been saying that, when is the casualty list is immeasurable now when it comes to the Democrats being caught up in the release of these Epstein files. And it really has almost exonerated President Trump. So my question is, what are your thoughts on that, on the fact that the release of the Epstein files has hurt the Democratic brand more than anything else? And number two, why not release these during the course of the Biden administration?
Well, now, the answer to that question is one of the mysteries of the world. Why didn't the Democrats push? Because of what you said exactly. They thought that this would have a splashback on President Trump, and it has not. So that's something they absolutely will not answer. I defy you to get a Democrat to answer why they didn't push to do this under President Biden. They didn't make a sound about it under President Biden. And so the only thing you can respond to that is that they did think it was going to hurt President Trump. It's just like, why do they fight having a picture ID to go vote? It makes no sense. It's another one of those imponderables that we can't ever get an answer on. So, yeah, I don't know. And on the Epstein files in general, I was one of those people, although we had some convoluted votes that maybe make people think I didn't feel this way, but I have always felt from the beginning, put it all out there as quickly as you can. I am a huge believer in transparency in all things. Count me as naive, but again, I have a heightened sense of justice. My sense is you put everything out there, and if there's anything that's wrong, then you deal with it. But don't try to hide things, especially, I mean, there are at least two lawyers here on this show today, and isn't it best always to know what you're doing? Don't you always want to know the answer before you put things out? Or ask a question. That's what I've always been told about.
Well, the fact that we always would like to know what we're doing doesn't mean that we do know what we're doing.
Or as we say in our business, Madam Chair,
we pretend.
That's assuming facts, not in evidence.
Well, the Democrats obviously didn't have much information about what was in the Epstein files if they thought, again, all the blowout was going to be against President Trump, because that's what they fought for after he got elected again. But I've always been in favor of transparency wherever we are. I think money that we spend in Washington, there ought to be lots of transparency. I hated the Arctic frost issue. I'll bring that up. You all haven't brought it up as an issue where the senators were going to pay themselves for being spied on by the Bidens. Most of the House and Democrat members wanted that done away with. I'm the one, by the way, who put the amendment in on the last appropriations bill that stopped that. I'm just, again, I'm a big believer in doing the right things for the right reasons.
Well, Congresswoman, Madam Chair, Virginia Foxx, Chair of the Rules Committee, a great leader in the United States Congress, a great leader of the Republican Conference, Chairman Jesse Garcia, Eric Levine, and I are absolutely delighted that you shared some of your very valuable time with us today. We look forward to having you back on the show as things develop in this very important calendar year with the midterms coming up. And I want to say to you, God bless you for all your great work, for your courage, for your integrity, your human decency. Having you in Congress makes me feel a lot better about the future of this country. And thank you for joining us on this week's Let the Record Show. Thank you very, very much.
Well, and thank you very much for having me. And please keep on with this show because it's very important to the American people.
Well, thank you. We
Thanks
appreciate
again.
that.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.